Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. I was just scrolling through TikTok just the other day, and it sort of hit me. Are other people out there kind of like feeling like the ads are just taking over? Like it seems like every other video is trying to sell me something, and I bet you're here because you're feeling that too, right?
Yeah, you're definitely not alone. It's no secret that as TikTok, has just exploded in popularity, so have the ads, and it makes sense from a business perspective, but it can definitely disrupt the flow when you're just trying to enjoy the content.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a bummer because there's so much great stuff on TikTok. And so for today's deep dive, we're going to unpack some tactics for taking back control of your feed, and we're using some insights from the SocialWick podcast, which had some interesting things to say about the different ways to block TikTok ads.
Yeah, what's fascinating about this topic is that there isn't like one magic solution. It's more about finding what works best for you and how much effort you're willing to put in. Some methods are super simple, like you can adjust your app
Wait,
settings.
hold on. App settings can actually help with ad blocking? I thought that was just for like notifications and stuff.
It might surprise you how much control you actually have right there in the settings. TikTok, like a lot of platforms, has an algorithm that's basically designed to figure out what you like.
Mhm. Oh, an algorithm? That sounds kind of creepy. Like, is it watching me?
Well, not literally watching you, but it is keeping track of what you do on the app. So it's like this giant brain constantly analyzing every like share and view, and it uses all that information to show you content and ads that it thinks you'll find interesting.
So tweaking the settings is kind of like telling this algorithm brain to lay off the ads a little bit.
Exactly. There are usually options to limit targeted advertising, which means you'll still see ads, but they might be less, tailored to your specific interests. It's a good first step if you're not ready for more involved methods.
Okay, got it. A good starting point. But what if you want to, take things up a notch, say block those ads altogether?
Then we can start exploring tools like browser extensions and third-party apps. These are especially handy if you're browsing TikTok on a computer.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these magical extensions.
Well, they're not exactly magic, but they can be pretty effective. They basically work by filtering out known ad servers. So imagine you're visiting a website and your browser is sending out, a bunch of requests to different servers to fetch all the content, including the ads. These extensions act like little gatekeepers. They're analyzing those requests and blocking any that come from known ad servers.
So it's like having a bouncer at the door of your browser, only letting in the good stuff.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And there are tons of extensions out there, but some of the most popular ones are uBlock Origin, AdBlock Plus, and Ghostry.
I've actually heard of those,
Yeah, right.
especially uBlock Origin. But how do you know which ones are actually good? Are they all safe to use?
That's a really important question. You always want to be mindful of, what you're installing on your computer. When choosing an extension, it's crucial to look for, reputable companies with a good track record of respecting user privacy.
Hmm.
Read reviews from other users and check how often the extension is updated. The last thing you want is to, trade ads for privacy breaches.
Good point. So we've got settings tweaks for a basic approach and extensions for something a little more robust. What about folks who, primarily use the TikTok app on their phone? Are there any options for them?
Absolutely. You can find privacy-focused apps specifically designed for mobile devices, and they do a pretty good job at filtering out unwanted content. It won't be a perfect solution, but it can definitely make a difference.
Okay, so we've got settings, extensions, and apps. Are there any other ways to, as you say, take control of the TikTok experience?
Well, there's a method that involves actually getting into your network settings, but it can be a little more hands-on. This approach is all about blocking the specific servers that deliver those ads.
We're talking like really getting into the technical weeds here, like changing IP addresses and stuff.
Not quite IP addresses, but you'd be working with something called a hosts file. You can think of it like a directory that tells your device how to find specific websites.
A directory? Can you give us like a real world analogy here?
Imagine you have a physical phone book, right? You want to call your friend, but you don't know their number. So you look up their name in the phone book and it gives you their number so you can reach them. The hosts file is kind of like that. When you type a website name into your browser, your device needs to figure out the actual address of that website on the internet, and the hosts file helps it do that.
So what does this have to do with blocking ads?
Well, by adding specific entries to your hosts file, you can basically redirect those ad serving domains to a dead end. It's like putting up a roadblock, preventing those ads from ever reaching your device.
That's pretty clever. So I'm guessing this hosts file method is for the more tech-savvy folks out there.
It definitely requires a bit of technical knowledge. You need to know how to access and edit the hosts file on your specific device, and you'll need a reliable list of ad-serving domains to block.
Got it. So for those of us who aren't quite ready to dive into the depths of our computer settings, are there any other options?
There is one more we can talk about using a VPN.
Ah, yes. VPNs, aren't those more for security and privacy, like hiding your location and stuff?
You're right, that's their main purpose. But some VPN services actually offer built-in ad blocking features as a bonus, so you get the added security and privacy plus the benefit of fewer ads.
So it's like a two-for-one deal.
Exactly. It's like having an extra layer of protection while you're browsing TikTok.
Okay, so we've got settings, extensions, apps, host file editing, and VPNs. We've covered a lot of ground already. It sounds like there's really something for everyone, no matter their level of tech skills. Before we jump into more detail on any of these methods, let's take a step back and look at the big picture. What are some of the things we should consider when choosing the right ad blocking strategy for us?
That's a great question. I think the first thing to consider is how much effort you're willing to put in.
Right. Some of these methods seem much more involved than others.
Exactly. And it's also important to think about your priorities. Is privacy your top concern, or is it just about, seeing fewer ads regardless of how it's achieved?
So it's not as simple as just saying, I want to block all ads.
No, there are definitely nuances to consider, and we'll delve into those a bit more as we continue our deep dive.
This is great. I'm already feeling more empowered, like I have more control over my TikTok experience, but I'm sure there's even more to unpack. What do you think we should dive into next?
Well, before we get into the, nitty-gritty of specific tools and techniques, it's worth taking a moment to talk about the ethical implications of ad blocking. You might not realize it, but those ads actually play a role in supporting the creators we love.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
It's easy to forget, especially when we're bombarded by ads all the time, but many creators rely on ad revenue to fund their content creation. It's what allows them to keep making the videos we enjoy.
So by blocking all ads, are we essentially cutting off their income stream?
It's not quite that black and white.
Okay.
The impact of ad blocking on creators can vary depending on a lot of factors.
Okay, so there's more to consider here than meets the eye.
Absolutely. And it's important to be aware of those nuances before we start, aggressively blocking every ad in sight.
Right. So it's not just about finding the right tools. It's about using those tools responsibly and ethically. This is already making me think about my TikTok habits in a whole new way.
That's exactly the kind of, thoughtful engagement we're hoping to encourage. It's all about finding that balance, reducing the annoyance of intrusive ads while still supporting the creators who make TikTok such a vibrant platform.
I love that perspective. It's not about eliminating ads entirely. It's about creating a more enjoyable and balanced experience for everyone.
This is fascinating stuff, and I'm eager to explore some specific examples of these methods. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually implement these ad blocking strategies and start reclaiming your TikTok feed. All right, so before we left off, we were talking about all the different ways you can minimize those pesky ads on TikTok. We've got settings, extensions, apps, even that mysterious hosts file. It's a lot to take in.
It can definitely feel overwhelming, but remember the key is to, find what works best for you. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
So where do we even begin? Let's break it down, starting with the simplest approach, tweaking those app settings. Great idea. So if you open up your TikTok app and head over to the settings, you should find options related to privacy and data collection. They might be labeled a little differently depending on your device, but you're basically looking for anything that mentions personalized ads or ad preferences.
Okay, found it. So if I turn those settings off, what happens exactly? Do the ads just completely disappear?
Not necessarily disappear entirely, but you should start seeing fewer ads that are directly targeted to your interests. It's like telling TikTok, hey, I'm not really comfortable with you tracking everything I do, so please ease up on the personalized ads.
Gotcha. So it's more about reducing the creepiness factor than completely eliminating ads.
Precisely. Now, if you're looking for something a bit more powerful, let's talk about those browser extensions we mentioned earlier.
Yes, those sounded intriguing, especially since I spend a lot of time on TikTok via my laptop.
Well, if you're using a browser like Chrome or Firefox, you can easily install extensions that are specifically designed to block ads.
And you mentioned a few popular ones before, right?
Yeah. Right. uBlock Origin, AdBlock Plus, and Ghostry are all solid options. They each have their own pros and cons, but they all work in a similar way by filtering out requests from known ad servers.
So basically, they act as a shield, preventing those ads from ever reaching my screen.
Exactly. And the beauty of these extensions is that they often work across multiple websites, not just TikTok. So if you're finding ads annoying on other platforms too, this could be a great solution for you.
That's awesome. So settings, tweaks, and extensions for desktop users.
Yeah.
What about the mobile folks out there?
Don't worry, there are ad blocking solutions for mobile devices too.
Okay, good to know. Any recommendations for specific apps?
For Android users, Blockada is a popular choice. It's a system-wide ad blocker, meaning it can block ads in other apps besides TikTok, which is pretty handy.
Oh, that's cool. So it's like an all-in-one ad blocking solution for your phone.
Exactly. And for iOS users, there are apps like OneBlocker and AdGuard Pro that offer similar functionality. They might not be as comprehensive as Blockada, but they can still significantly reduce the number of ads you see on TikTok and other apps.
Okay, so we've got a good range of options for both desktop and mobile users. But now I'm curious about that hosts file method we touched on earlier. It sounded pretty technical, but also kind of fascinating.
It is a bit more advanced, but it can be a very effective way to block ads. Remember how we talked about the hosts file acting like a directory that tells your device how to find websites?
Yes, like a phone book for the internet.
Right. Well, you can actually edit this hosts file to redirect known ad-serving domains to a dead end.
So it's like telling your device to ignore any requests coming from those specific addresses.
Precisely. It's like creating your own personal ad-blocking firewall.
That's pretty cool, but I imagine this requires some serious tech skills.
It does take a bit of know-how. You need to be comfortable working with system files, and you'll need to find a reliable list of ad-serving domains to block push. There are resources online that can guide you through the process, but it's definitely not for everyone.
Right. Maybe not for the faint of heart. So for those of us who aren't quite ready to venture into the depths of system files, are there any other less technical options?
Well, we haven't talked much about VPNs yet, and they can be a great solution for those looking for a simpler approach with added security benefits.
Ah, yes, the VPNs. I think I'm starting to understand how they fit into the ad blocking picture.
So, as you mentioned earlier, VPNs are primarily known for enhancing security and privacy by encrypting your internet traffic and masking your IP address. But some VPA providers actually offer built-in ad blocking as an extra feature.
So it's like getting double the protection security, fewer ads.
Exactly. And the beauty of using a VPN for ad blocking is that it often works seamlessly across all your devices and apps without you having to configure anything extra.
That sounds pretty convenient, but I imagine not all VPNs are created equal, right?
Definitely not. Just like with browser extensions, it's important to choose a reputable VPN provider that you trust with your data. Do your research, read reviews, and make sure the VPN has a clear and transparent privacy policy.
Okay, so it sounds like choosing the right tools is just as important as understanding how they work. But now I'm wondering, with all these different options, how do you even know where to start? Is there like a decision-making framework we can use?
That's a great question. And the truth is, the best approach is often a combination of strategies. You might use an ad blocking extension on your desktop, a privacy-focused app on your phone, and tweak your TikTok settings for good measure.
So it's all about finding the right mix that works for you and your individual needs.
Exactly. And it might take some experimentation to figure out what that perfect mix is. Don't be afraid to try different tools and see what feels most comfortable and effective for you.
This is great advice. I'm starting to feel a lot less overwhelmed and a lot more empowered to decontrol my TikTok experience. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the ethical implications of ad blocking.
Absolutely. It's a crucial aspect of this conversation.
We talked about how ads help support creators, but I'm curious to explore those nuances a bit further. How significant is the impact of ad blocking on creators, really?
Well, it's a complex issue, and the impact can vary widely depending on factors like the creator's audience size, their content niche, and the platforms they use. For some creators, ad revenue might be their primary source of income, while for others, it might just be a small supplement.
So it's not as simple as saying that blocking ads is inherently bad for creators.
Right. It's important to remember that ad blocking is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used responsibly or irresponsibly.
That's a great way to put it. So how can we be more mindful of those ethical considerations when making decisions about ad blocking?
I think a good starting point is simply being aware of the impact our choices can have. It's about finding a balance between reducing the annoyance of intrusive ads and supporting the creators whose content we enjoy.
Okay, so maybe it's not about blocking every single ad, but rather about being more selective and intentional about which ads we block.
Exactly. And there are ways to support creators beyond just watching ads. You can follow them on other platforms, engage with their content, share with your friends, or even consider becoming a paid subscriber or patron if you really value their work.
Those are all great suggestions.
Yeah.
It's about finding a way to create a more sustainable ecosystem for everyone involved.
Precisely. And I think as technology continues to evolve, we'll see even more innovative ways to support creators and manage our online experiences in a way that feels both ethical and enjoyable.
This has been such an insightful conversation. It's amazing how much we've uncovered just by taking a deep dive into this one topic. But before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder. Now that we've explored all these different approaches to ad blocking on TikTok, and that we've considered the ethical implications, the question is, how will you use this knowledge to create your ideal TikTok experience? It's a powerful question, and one that I hope will spark some thoughtful reflection as you continue your TikTok journey. It's almost like we've, unlocked a secret level in the game of TikTok, right? We've gone from, feeling like these passive consumers to empowered users who can actually shape their, online experience.
That's a great analogy. It's all about taking control and curating your feed to reflect, what you truly want to see.
Exactly. And it's not just about blocking ads, right? It's about understanding, the ecosystem, the role of algorithms and how our choices impact, the creators that we love.
I think what's really exciting is that, this knowledge really empowers you to, make more informed decisions about your online experience, as a whole, not just on TikTok.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like we've developed, a whole new set of digital literacy skills that we can
Yeah.
apply, across all these platforms.
And those skills are only going to become more valuable as technology continues to evolve.
Yeah.
We can expect to see even more, sophisticated algorithms, new platforms emerging, and more creative ways for creators to connect with their audiences.
It's almost like a whole new digital frontier is opening up.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to think about how we as users can actively shape that frontier.
Absolutely. It's not just about, passively consuming content anymore. It's about engaging thoughtfully, making conscious choices and using our voices to, create a digital landscape that really reflects our values.
This deep dive has been such an eye-opener. I feel like I've gained, a whole new perspective on TikTok and on my online experience in general.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we hope to achieve, right? It's all about empowering you with the knowledge and the tools to, navigate the digital world with confidence and intention.
So, go forth, fellow TikTok enthusiasts,
Yeah.
and curate your feeds with purpose. Until next time, happy scrolling.